Welcome to Property Deconstructed with Mark Ericallo from Master Advocates. They specialise in finding the perfect home for you, an investment property or a home just to suit your needs. My name is Pat Panetta from Tell Your Story Media. We tell stories of businesses and individuals to inspire and share knowledge. Now, this is called Property Deconstructed. So if you're thinking of buying or selling a property, whether it be for investment or for your use, the tips and tricks for those from professionals in our studio. Mark Ericallo joins me again. G'day, Mark.
Hey, Pat, how are you? Great to see you again.
Good to see you, mate. Now, it's up to you to find our special guests every episode. So who have you lined up for us this week?
I've got the great man, Sean O'Neill from IRS International. So IRS, we utilise ourselves and many other clients with plumbing and electrical services. But importantly, Sean's one of the Victorian and electrical supervisors with IRS and can provide pre-purchase reports for due diligence for electrical as well. And the company do plumbing, which we'll hear about a bit later on also. Yeah, so Sean, thanks for coming on the show and be able to share your wisdom in the electrical space and due diligence for clients. But yeah, please feel welcome to introduce a little bit of your experience and background.
No worries. Thanks for having us on. So I've been an A-grade electrician for 6 years now, and then we sort of specialise in the residential and commercial section, looking at all sorts of parts of the electrical systems from upgrades to safety checks, installation work, split systems.
Right.
So we cover a broad scope, which has given me, some real quality experience.
So Mark uses you to check out a property when someone wants to buy a residential or commercial property. You guys sort of work together to make sure everything's okay.
We do. And so one is the buyer beware process, whether they're owner occupying or investing. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I'll keep mentioning that now. You've got the residential tenancy reforms in Victoria, which have been in place for a little while, but they'll be enforced 2023, and they are more around the minimum standards that properties need to have. So even more important, if you're buying an investment, understand the structural integrity, electrical and plumbing standards that need to be met, so there's no surprises.
Right.
One, that it's safe and that you're not liable, but you don't you want a nice safe property for the tenants.
And this is, the onus is on the buyer to ensure this is all okay.
Well, once you're a purchaser, if the intention's as investment, it is your liability as a landlord minimum or property owner now, or rental provider.
Yes.
Terms keep changing, but yes, the checks. That's one. That's a little a bit positive in the sense that you're being proactive about doing the tenancy checks.
Yep.
But we also use IRS for emergency calls. They're a 24-hour service, so post maintenance and call outs. I think they're fixing a hot water system that blew overnight. Someone's fixing an electrical hot water system for us today for one of our investor clients' properties. But yes, with that residential tenancy checks, the pre-purchase reports are quite detailed. Sean, you might want to share from the electrical side what you do with those reports.
They are, and I think they're really important too, because your electrical system, like that's life or death. If you have problems with these, you got the risk of electric shock and house fires, and then I've heard of a few different stories. Like there's just 3 houses alone that I'm just aware of that have burnt down or had a fire, and they were all all electrical caused. Yeah.
Scary.
So something like 40% of all house fires are caused by.
And it's not something you can see with the human eye. You can walk through and it's this hidden danger in there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you can't always test for it too, because, our tests only go so far. We can test, the reliability of the insulation. We can test the earth. But certain tests, and it's really good now, these amazing products have come on the market. They test for arc faults. So if you have a bad connection, what happens is the electricity tries to jump through and it creates a lot of heat. Now that can't always be detected by, your RCDs and your overloads, but they've got these incredible devices now which monitor how the electricity works, and it will cut off any dangerous arcs at all, which can pretty much guarantee that your house will not catch on fire because of an electrical fault.
Right. What does that look like, that piece of equipment? It looks like it's sort of, it's swirling dials on it and all sorts of stuff.
No, it's pretty good. Technology's come a long way now. Yeah. There's just a little device that we'll put in the switchboard, one on each circuit. And then, that'll pretty much prevent all electrical house fires, which I think's, incredible. And
Wow.
in the future, this is going to go in.
It's
every single
fantastic.
house. Yeah.
And can that be retrofitted, or well, now as we're talking about those tenancy minimum standards, all switchboards need to be updated now by next year, 2023. But can it be retrofitted to say owner occupiers that don't?
Yeah, of course.
Update their switchboards.
I've actually just put a few in my house on the weekend, and I'm going to recommend them to all my family and friends.
Yeah.
I think if you think of how much it's worth.
Yeah,
So,
and how many
not have
appliances people running appliances, home offices, and
exactly.
overloading switchboards.
And your home too, like that's a place where you're with your family, you have people over. I know of this wasn't a house fire, but a lot of people, there was a little girl who was like 5 years old over in Perth a few years ago, and there was an electrical fault, and then she touched the tap while she was like filling up some water, and because they had a fault on their electrical system, the current went through it and killed her.
Oh,
So
geez.
you can have that. The last thing you want to do too is like burn down in your own house. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a if you are an investor and it's not your home that you occupy, you want to know that you're not going to be liable, but you're providing that safe environment.
Yes, and the law, rightly so. I mean, that's such a tragic story. Is so tough on this, and will come down on you like a ton of bricks if you don't sort of follow the right sort of procedure and do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what it's in place for.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep,
I think it's a really good thing.
It is, yeah. Well, with that being said, is there a certain period of property that you find more faults with than compared to others, or ones that you prefer and feel like, okay, we're walking in here, it should be good, not just modern property.
Yeah. So probably your older houses. So you've got wiring that's been in there for 60, 70 years. Over time, especially in Australian conditions, we might get 5 days in a row of 40 degrees. So and then it's running electricity all the time. So heat will deteriorate the insulation over time. And then more your older properties, and they had solid core conductors back then. I think maybe 20 years ago they changed it. But what happens with that is they're more likely to snap, like especially in and around like your switches and power points. So that's where you get the arc faults.
Okay.
And also you've got 40 years of people, an electrician or a DIY guys come in and change things. You've had renovations,
Right.
All sorts of things can happen over the lifespan of a property.
Right. Interesting. We had a previous guest who spoke about the structural, of a building
inspector.
before, the building inspector, before the 80s, it was in good nick. But you're sort of saying the opposite, because as it gets older, there's heat, there's wear and tear.
People doing less on their own and actually getting licensed people. I guess is
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
some generations.
Yeah, that's right. Mum and Dad would sort of do it themselves. So the older properties is what you need to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, some of the stuff I've seen, like I've gone through houses doing these tests, and I've found like insulation, because they didn't have the right circuit protection. Because it was just off those old fuses. The insulation had completely melted.
Right.
There was exposed conductors, so anyone sort of crawling through the roof,
wow.
if that was live, that could have been, the end of them pretty easily.
Right.
It's the old ceramic circuit breakers.
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
wire.
Yeah, you want to get rid of those. And the other thing too is like your earth connection. So your earthing is so important, because any fault current that you have, the earth provides a safe path for that to go, so it doesn't go through you.
Yep.
Now, if you've got a connection that's been exposed, to the weather for 30, 40 years, it's going to corrode, it's going to deteriorate. Or in some sections, if they've done a renovation. So before 1976, all your earthing was done, through your water pipe. And then if anything has been repaired there and you've got PVC in between, the connection and where that pipe goes into the ground, you don't have a safe earth anymore. That's just going nowhere.
Right. So
Yeah.
how does this affect your world, Mark? As I hear this, okay, so Sean gets in there and he comes back to you and says this all needs to be done or changed. It could be sometimes a big sort of, it sounds, you've got to rewire the whole joint. It sounds expensive to me. Like, how do you deal with that?
Well, look, I think from an advocate's point of view, we're focusing on property values and locations and our opinion, where they can even add value in future and have some wealth. But
Got it. So it sort of just paints the accurate reality picture.
from
then you
what
know what you're dealing
buying,
with.
yeah, and from what you're buying, we're engaging a team of professionals to help make that informed decision. Again, a bit of you can't mitigate all risk, but at least we know at this point of time this is the assessment from a professional, like an electrical inspection or building and plumbing,
Yep.
and then have that roadmap again. What needs to be fixed,
And it is
now.
what it is. At least you know. Is
At
that what
least you know,
mean?
yeah, and you can budget or create a roadmap to improve things,
Mm.
or what's immediate. Look, we've got to jump on this now, or walk away. If it's risky enough, because what all those checks you just mentioned, they're pretty much picked up, regarding earthing in the pre-purchase reports as well.
Yeah, of course. We go into more detail about that. We'll check, even like the condition of switches and outlets. If you've got a house that's 60 years old, that switch has a crack on it. Quite often, if I play with it 6 or 7 times, it'll half come off. And if I pull the cover plate off, that switch will just pop right off.
Right.
And I've gone out to, check places, and there hasn't even been any, plastic on the switch. So if you just put your finger on it, you're gonna get a zap.
Right. You
Which
don't want to buy
isn't
a
very
place and get
friendly.
in there and all the switches don't work and stuff. You want to make sure when you buy
Put
it.
a tenant in thinking that,
Yeah, you're
a lot of people assume building and pest inspectors covered it. They're not. They're giving you maybe alerting you to some danger and saying doesn't look good. The electrical plumbing, go
you
get
need
an
the
electrician.
experts, got it.
But so you do need that overall picture, especially investors now that there's strict minimum standards.
Okay. It's a must. It has to be done, and it's part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's why they need somebody like you, Mark, who's an advocate, to take them through the process and make sure it's all done correctly.
Yeah, we can just recommend, and then it's up to your own individual appetite for risk, I guess.
Yeah, because it's such a big emotional decision. We've said this before on the show, purchasing a home or an investment property. You don't want to stuff it up, do you?
No, get it right the first time.
That's right. All right. Have you covered all your questions for Sean?
I have. You've been a great guest. Thanks, Sean.
Perfect.
Sean.
Thank you very much for having me on.
No worries. From IRS International, Sean O'Neill, thanks for your time on Property Deconstructed. You can find them online. They've got a great website. We've got it in the background there. IRS International.